Hey everyone, Beano Nintendo here, and you know, I dedicate a lot of my time on this channel talking about Super Smash Bros. Because I find the idea of crossover fighting games really appealing. But I'm not just a video game guy, I'm a cartoon guy too, so I figured I might as well dip my toes into the Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl waters and pitch a roster for a potential third game in the series because, well, to be honest, none of the rosters I've seen on the game's subreddit have really done it for me. Like, what the hell is Making Fiends, and why are y'all so obsessed with it? I'm starting to think that you're trying to gaslight me into believing a made-up show, a real Graggle Simpsons situation. And while it would be easy to go hog wild with this roster, making it as big as Ultimates and including every single veteran, I don't realistically see that happening. So, who's returning, who's debuting, and who's left on the cutting room floor? You'll find out in just a minute, but first, let's roll intro. My name is Beano Brown, and I'm proud to be getting content out in Minneapolis. With Steven and Deku and Daily the Cat, you'll sure have a good time, and that is fact. So if you want a place for awesome videos, head to my YouTube page, I'm Beano Nintendo! So, the first thing we gotta do here is determine the roster size. The first game had 25 playable characters, and the second game had 29, including DLC, and overall, the series has had 40 unique playable characters. A major reason why so many of the characters from All-Star Brawl 1 were cut in favor of entirely new characters in 2 was because of a limited budget and development time. This was arguably worth it given how much more polished the second game was compared to the first, but ideally, we'd want to preserve a larger percentage of the veteran characters in a third title, and I think that additional dev time, more similar to the amount of time between Super Smash Bros. Titles, could help with that. On average, there's about a 5-year gap between Smash Bros. Titles, if we're counting Smash 4 as one game, and assuming that there will be another Smash game after Ultimate. Since Game Mill was able to develop a game with 29 characters in 2 years, that means that they were able to develop 14.5 characters per year on average. But saying that's a little disingenuous because returning fighters are not going to take as much dev time. They're maybe going to take half the dev time. So really, it's more like 11 characters per year, which over 5 years would lead to a 55 character roster, which is certainly big, but it's not Ultimate level huge. If everyone returned, we'd have 15 newcomer slots to work with, but I'm aiming to cut at least 5 so that we can have 20 or so newcomers. To build the returning roster, my first step is to ensure that every unique franchise that has gotten a character in previous games gets at least one character in this game, which means I'm adding the following characters back immediately: SpongeBob, Aang, Helga Pataki, CatDog, Danny Phantom, Garfield, Jimmy Neutron, Lincoln Loud, Leonardo, Nigel Thornberry, Oblina, Ren and Stimpy, Reptar, Jenny Wakeman, Zim, Rocco, The Angry Beavers, and El Tigre. So that's 18 characters representing 18 Nicktoons universes. I am gonna also add in 2 characters that technically represent pre-existing universes but have their own shows, which are Korra from The Legend of Korra and Patrick Star from The Patrick Star Show. Patrick's portrayal in this game will be based a little bit more on that series, while still maintaining plenty of references to classic SpongeBob. I don't know, give him twice as many alternate costumes as the other characters, based half of them off of The Patrick Star Show and the other half off classic SpongeBob, and make him basically the Wario of this game. So that brings us to a nice even 20 characters, but we can definitely do better than that. I don't want to just have one returning character per franchise. A lot of these series have really strong ensemble casts, so let's dip into those a bit. And let's start with the villains, because All-Star Brawl 2 had a pretty strong heroes versus villains theme. This means the return of Plankton, Azula, and Shredder as playable characters, and then the return of Vlad Plazimus, who's getting upgraded from a boss to a playable character, technically making him our first newcomer. Still, we can do better than that. I won't lie, I don't really remember my life as a teenage robot all too well, but the fans have been clamoring for Vexus in this game, and I think I agree with them. She definitely seems like the most prominent and iconic recurring villain from the series. And while it is kind of sad that Eartha Kitt isn't around to reprise the role, Cree Summer is still around, and she's voiced the character a few times before. So they can either reuse old voice clips of Eartha, or just use Cree again. But supporting characters are important too, so let's also add back Sandy, since Game Mill loves their strong female characters, and between her karate and gadgets, her moveset was pretty fun. Squidward, because he was one of the first newcomers revealed for All-Star Brawl 2, and I think they honestly nailed his moveset. Lucy Loud, because she was actually a character that the developers had to convince Nickelodeon to put in due to her moveset potential, and I can see why. The whole vampire/ghost gimmick is pretty cool. Toph, because we have an airbender, waterbender, and firebender on the roster already, so it feels weird to leave earthbending out. And then Hugh Neutron, because he's a fan-voted meme character, and people would be pretty hyped to have him back. Now, for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I understand that it's weird to have a game where you can't play as all four of them, but I kinda hate how they've been handled in the series so far. All of the designs are based off of the 1987 series, which I understand is the most iconic, but it means that they're all visually very similar aside from color scheme and the weapons that they wield, and I think that more can be done here. In Super Smash Bros., Link is sporting his Breath of the Wild design, Ganondorf his Ocarina of Time design, and Zelda her Link Between Worlds design, and I think that they could do something very similar with the Turtles, having all four of them represent different series. Leonardo is the leader of the crew, and as such, I think he can stick with his classic 80s design. Shredder can too, because he doesn't exactly suffer from the same visual identity issues that the Turtles themselves do. Michelangelo is colorful, bombastic, and goofy, just like the 2012 CGI series, so that's the design he sports. Raphael is brooding and serious, so he gets the slightly edgier, more comic-inspired art style of the 2003 Ninja Turtles series. Finally, as the one who does machines, I feel like Donatello should have some actual tech on his body, like he has in the Rise of the TMNT. So that's my pitch for them, and you might disagree with who should represent which series, but I think that the core idea is pretty solid. They might need to have their movesets reworked a bit to better fit the specific series they're representing, but I mean, that's fine. Plenty of characters got significant reworks in All-Star Brawl 2 already, nothing a 5-year dev cycle can't fix. And then the last veteran I'm putting back on the roster for now is gonna be Gerald from Hey Arnold, because I think having a sports and urban legends based moveset is cool, and Hey Arnold should probably have more than one character. And yes, I am implying that I won't be adding Arnold himself to the roster this time. I'm sorry, it's not that I don't like the character, it's just that
you are a regular guy!
And I think that there is a better character that could fit that archetype to add than him, which we'll get into in just a bit. So far, we have 32 veteran fighters and 2 newcomers, meaning we can add 21 more characters. And let's start by adding a few more characters from returning series. First, we got Sheen Estevez from Jimmy Neutron. Like with Patrick Star,
He isn't just here to represent the original show, but also the Planet Sheen spin-off,
which I know wasn't super well received, but it's still part of Nickelodeon's history and worth acknowledging here.
Sokka from Avatar: The Last Airbender, our next choice. He seems to be the best character to represent non-benders from the Avatar universe. He might not be as canonically powerful as our other Avatar reps, but he can still throw down with his sword and trusty boomerang. Plus, he's been a fan-favorite character, so I think he makes sense to include. Susie Carmichael from Rugrats takes the stage, albeit sporting her all-grown-up design. I definitely think that Rugrats deserves more characters because prior to SpongeBob and Avatar, it was Nickelodeon's most popular series.
But the All-Star Brawl series has struggled to include Rugrats characters.
Presumably because it's a bit weird to beat up on literal babies. Susie got a lot of focus in the All Grown Up spin-off that ages the characters up a bit and could come with a fun music-based moveset, not unlike what Ember got in All-Star Brawl 2.
Which, I mean, sorry, Ember. You're cool and all, but you only appeared in 8 episodes of your show, and Susie appeared in over 70 of hers. So, I think you're just a little upstaged for a spot on the roster here. And my final pick for a new character from a returning series is going to be Stu Pickles from Rugrats.
He sort of completes a Mimi Dad trio with Nigel and Hugh.
He's been involved in a few memes himself, like
making chocolate pudding
and
I'm not Stu.
But moreover, I think him being a toy inventor actually gives him some unironic moveset potential as sort of a trap-setting zoner archetype. Alright, so we got 17 newcomers to go, and they're all from series new to All-Star Brawl. And let's just start with the most glaring omission.
Where the hell is Fairly OddParents? I know, there's some kind of rights issue with this company called Nelvana, and there are countries where the show actually aired on Disney Channel instead of Nickelodeon, and the creator is kind of a weirdo grifter. At the end of the day, does any of that stuff really matter? FOP is a huge part of Nickelodeon's history, and it has been a consistent part of their branding for the past 25 some odd years. There has been some debate as to who the main character representing the Fairly OddParents franchise should be, whether it should be Timmy Turner representing the classic series, or Hazel Wells representing A New Wish.
But honestly,
as long as you have a kid with Cosmo and Wanda surrounding them, I don't think it really matters who you pick. Might as well treat this like some of the newer Fire Emblem characters in Smash and have half the costumes be Timmy and the other half be Hazel. They can attack alongside their fairies, which you can switch between with the down special. Cosmo's attacks are faster but have a chance to whiff, and Wanda's attacks are slower but more reliable. Something like that. I don't really know the specifics. But of course, with such a long-running franchise, it feels wrong to stop at just one character. So I'm proposing 2 more. First of all, there's not a ton of heavyweights on the roster, so I'm adding Jorgen von Strangle to give us 1 more. With his mix of magic and military equipment, it would be pretty easy to imagine a fun moveset for him.
And for our last FOP character, it isn't someone powered by magic, but more so powered by malice. Vicky, the evil babysitter, sort of fills the mean girl archetype that Helga does, but she takes it to a whole new level, taking utter delight in the torturing of children through shock collars, chainsaws, flamethrowers, and battle axes. So, not only would she be fun to play as, but she'd also be fun to beat up, as she really, truly deserves it. We ain't out of the Butch Hartman minds yet, though, as Tough Puppy was also a fairly successful show on the network, so I think its main character, Dudley Puppy, deserves a spot on the roster. And I know his partner, Kitty Catswell, is pretty popular in, certain communities. So let's just throw her on the roster too. Why not?
Butch Hartman isn't the only prolific creator on Nickelodeon, though, as Klasky Chupo Inc. is responsible for a bunch of iconic Nicktoons throughout the 90s and 2000s. We already have the Rugrats, Wild Thornberrys, and Ah Real Monsters on the roster, but it's kinda wild to me that we don't have anyone from Rocket Power yet, since an extreme sports-based character seems pretty easy to build a moveset around. Auto Rocket may be the main character, but Game Mill considered his sister Reggie when originally pitching All-Star Brawl 1.
So, I don't know, any of the 4 main characters could work, but I'll go with Reggie for now, just because. Game Mill loves their female representation, and there's really nothing that the boys can do that she can't, so why not?
What rarely, if ever, gets mentioned in the discussion for All-Star Brawl, though, is As Told by Ginger, which is a shame because that's probably the best Klasky Chupo show, and maybe the best Nicktoon full stop.
Still, it does kind of make sense that people aren't talking about it in this context.
I do look at Ginger Foutley and kinda go,
You are a regular guy!
but her brother, Carl, on the other hand, well, that boy ain't right. But he is right for a fighting game. Carl's sort of a Bart Simpson archetype, pulling pranks on people with his friend Hoodsy as his sidekick, although he's quite a bit weirder and grosser than his Simpsons equivalent.
In All-Star Brawl, I picture him walking around like a monkey, turning himself temporarily invisible with disappearing powder, and summoning the ghost of his dead elderly mistress to haunt his opponents. It makes sense in context. Okay, so here's our current roster, but let's put a pause on characters from the same series or from the same studio, or really characters that have anything in common at all. Let's just do kind of a grab bag of characters. The first character I want to talk about here is Rudy to Booty from ChalkZone. I think he'd be a cool addition with his ability to draw anything he wants into reality. The YouTuber Max Hamm made a really good moveset video for his creation Snap, and I think a lot of those moves could probably be worked into Rudy's moveset too. I'll link the video below because it is worth checking out. Then we have Tak, who actually debuted in a video game first, before eventually getting that game adapted into a Nicktoon, Tak and the Power of Juju. So I think the transition from video game to cartoon back to video game is gonna be pretty seamless.
Then, I know that Barnyard was pretty popular in memes, and its main character, Otis, has been included in a lot of the Flash games that inspired All-Star Brawl, like Super Brawl 2, where he shoots milk at people. So if that move carries over, I could definitely see plenty of bizarre viral clips going around. Nickelodeon now owns the rights to the Winx Club, which I primarily know as a Foxbox show, which I never actually watched, but I remember seeing the advertisements for it, and they kinda awakened some things in middle school me. But since I don't know much about the show itself, I'll just put Bloom on the roster since she's the main character, but considering it's a magical girl show, there's probably multiple characters that could work for a fighting game. While technically not airing on Nickelodeon, Glitch Techs was produced by Nickelodeon Animation Studios, and seems to have a pretty strong cult following, so a character from that can be our dedicated 2020s Nickelodeon rep. Hector and Miko seem to pretty much share equal billing, so I'm not sure if they should be costumes for each other, or take up 2 spots on the roster, or if I should pick one of them over the other, but whatever, I'll let you folks decide. If you pick the separate character slot option, just replace whoever your least favorite character on the final roster image is, with the other Glitch Techs character. Okay, so that leaves just 5 characters left, and for the next few, I'd like to expand the scope of the roster a bit, and include a few characters from the Nick Jr. lineup, because that's a huge part of Nickelodeon's branding, and at least a few of their characters are just as iconic as the likes of SpongeBob, Avatar, and the TMNT. In doing so,
I'll also technically be including the first couple live-action characters. I waited to do this until the end because I don't want to go too ham with it and make a roster that looks like this, but I do think it's important to acknowledge that Nickelodeon is more than just a bunch of Y7 rated cartoons. No characters from Nickelodeon sitcoms appear on this roster, largely because their inclusion has a high capacity to age poorly when the actors do bad things, but I'm not against the idea entirely. My only hard rule for All-Star Brawl rosters is that the characters need to have either debuted in a Nickelodeon TV show, movie, or game, or they need to be currently owned by Nickelodeon specifically, and not just Paramount or Viacom as a whole. I've seen some people try to sneak Movie Sonic into their rosters, and I will absolutely not be doing that here. Our first Nick Jr. / live action character shouldn't really come as a shock to you. I already showed him in a clip. It's Steve from Blue's Clues.
My dream version of this character would be motion captured a la Mortal Kombat,
but that might be too impractical, so I'll settle for a disturbingly realistic 3D model instead.
Steve could summon all sorts of friends from the Blue's Clues series, having Blue pounce on his opponents, pouring Mr. Salt and Mrs. Pepper on their wounds, and shouting "Mail time!" to get the mailbox to pop out of nowhere and into their faces. Throw in some alternate costumes for Joe and Josh, and you've got yourself one hell of a fun character. Then we have Dora the Explorer, specifically live-action Dora from the 2019 film Dora and the Lost City of Gold, which treats her more like an Indiana Jones or Nathan Drake-style adventurer.
Like with Susie, I'm doing this in part because beating up on this version of the character makes more sense than beating up on a 7-year-old.
But also because that movie was really successful and pretty relevant too, since a second live-action Dora film hit Paramount Plus just last year.
Of course, I should show the actual Dora cartoon some love too, so it gets represented by the iconic character Swiper the Fox. I see him playing kinda like a certain other Fox character from a certain other platform fighter series, only with more of an emphasis on stealing resources like projectiles and slime from other players.
And my last Nick Jr. rep is Oswald. He's easily the most obscure of these Nick Jr. picks, but he's another heavyweight for the roster with a unique body type to boot, so I think Game Mill could have some fun bringing this character to life.
And so, that leaves just one final character. Who on earth could it be? Well, Ultimate ended their DLC by introducing a newcomer thought impossible to join the roster due to rights issues with Disney, and I'm choosing to cap this roster in much the same way. The king of all regular guys, Doug Funny from Nickelodeon's Doug, joins the roster, with moves taking inspiration from his alter egos like Quail Man, Smash Adams, and Jack Bandit. They said it was impossible, but Game Mill pulled some strings, and now Doug Funny is finally here.
So, that's my roster for a potential Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 3. What do you think? Did I miss anyone important? I know that the Loud House is a pretty big deal for the channel, even getting its own spin-off, but I'm not too familiar with it, and it has like a million different characters, so I have no clue, who else to add from that series. Are you mad at me for cutting your favorite? I do think it's kind of funny how I inadvertently cut all of the DLC characters from 2. Maybe next time, don't focus your DLC exclusively on the 3 most heavily represented franchises on your roster, Game Mill.
Ah, it's my face. That was my Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 3 video. Please feel free to leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments below, subscribe, or even support me on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. You should also watch my video essay, The Media That Shaped My Move to Minnesota. It has basically nothing to do with this video, but it needs more views, so watch it. And until next time, this is Bino Nintendo, signing off.
Nick, 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 Nick. Nickelodeon. Nick, 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 Nick. Nickelodeon.